Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another recording of Hearthstone. Today is Wednesday, June 5th, and we are on the Americas account. We already re-rolled, tried to start streaming and then had a bit of a false start, so we're doing it again. We need to get victories and we need to do the Tavern Brawl. 3 victories and play 5 weapons, theoretically, although we don't really need to do all 3 of the daily quests. Would be smarter, frankly, to do it right now and have a shorter Friday video, particularly considering there is a decent possibility that Yeti will start streaming live streams on Friday, and so I probably won't get any views, which wouldn't be too different from any other stream. You know, what's weird is the last couple of streams in particular, both Level by Level Gaming and Lemon Lover have come on the chat. But then I looked at the last stream in particular, and there was only 2 views. So I'm getting a little concerned that the YouTube and notification and recommendation algorithm has pegged my streams so specifically that it literally is only giving notifications or recommendations to 2 people, and that's not what any YouTuber wants. Certainly we all want to get our videos out in front of new eyes, and the new eyes certainly I was getting some subscriptions, some new subscribers, but then that's kind of dropped off too. That could have a lot to do with summer, certainly. It could have a lot to do with a lot of things, but who knows? You never know. One little thing changes on YouTube and then everything's different again. Nefarian rises, join forces with a new friend, with a friend to take down Nefarian again. Anduin teams up with a newcomer Guy in this new cooperative Tavern Brawl. So what this is you and your opponent will be fighting a taunt minion Nefarian with 200 health, and we have to survive and help each other to defeat it before either one of us die. Didn't do anything yesterday, so I didn't get any more of the Steam fall list cleanup videos recorded. I need to do that. I'm like at 85% RAM. Also, I am almost completely out of hard drive space, and tomorrow will be the Solo Adventure final week, so we'll also want to do things like that where we can finish. What I want to do is Thursday I'll have a special live stream to finish the solo adventure. After that point I'll start uploading videos and freeing space on my hard drive. This is the guy we have to beat for this Tavern Brawl. He's going to switch sides each time. He's going to do constant annoying things.
Greetings.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and greet this guy. But there's not a lot we can do. We just play this and move on. We just gotta kind of keep our own health as high as possible.
So easily manipulated.
So if we're gonna get something that is it swapped the hands back, which is that intentional? I could restore a bunch of health, but I don't think I need to do that. I could have given him +3 attack, but that's not going to do anything unless I can double the attack at some point, which I shouldn't be able to do. Having him draw 2 cards this early in the game is probably not that helpful. I'm in this weird position as a small YouTuber where I can kind of take a vacation the week before, and probably should take a vacation the week before E3 happens, whereas places like Giant Bomb would be best. They really can't do that because they're going to have to set up and prepare for the for E3 and for traveling to E3 and for streaming special live streams of E3. Whereas, frankly, I think there's after last year, in which I actually spent time live streaming all the live streams and chatting over them, which really didn't get me any views nor help anything, nor did it really do a great job informing me any better than the game recaps that would have happened anyways. So for a small-time YouTuber streamer, or for somebody who's just into video games, listening to the Giant Bombcast after E3 is probably one of the better ways to do it. And it doesn't have to be the Giant Bombcast, just listening to any mainstream video game journalist talking about the recap of the games that are shown. That's kind of all you need to know. Is there something that would... Let's see. What happened to the minion in his hand that whenever you're healed? Yeah. It swapped. Giving more cards I don't think is a smart move. So you know what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna power that one up, and then do I need that? No. So I guess what I'm doing is I'm just hoping that he'll swap hands again at some point. Yeah, but so I'm kind of taking it easy, although I'm not really taking it easy. I'm doing the spring cleaning videos, which
I was right all along.
I should have probably started at the beginning of May doing that. If I had done it a month earlier, that probably would have worked a little bit better. Let's see. For each minion, restore 2 health. And I really don't know what we're trying to do here. Until I can... Job's done. Until this guy can get more powerful. This guy, he should be able to heal himself. And he should have plenty of everything else. And I don't have the spell to... I don't have the spell to turn this minion's health into attack, so giving him more health is not actually that helpful. Let's see. This probably is a smart move. This is probably a smart move.
Time's up. Let's do this.
But you can't target this guy with spells, so even if I did have a spell that did damage, which I don't think I do, it wouldn't really help. Also, we have to be careful here, because if we fill either side with 7 minions, he'll destroy everything on the field. So what did that do? Just give everything +2/+2. That's slightly helpful.
Behold the true power of Nefarian.
So now he's got 5 attack.
Shaman, the elements obey me now.
Okay, that sucks. Do you think there's something that I should resummon right now, or should I just play this? And he just will not heal this guy, so let's see. I could only give a friendly minion Wind Fury, so that wouldn't really work. This one doesn't gain 7 attack at the beginning of each movement. I'm really just focusing on the game right now and not even going into the news. We do have news to talk about, certainly. Not a ton, quite frankly, because of E3, but there's a few things. I'm just gonna throw this out. There's this YouTuber Steven Crowder versus Vox's Carlos Maza drama going on. Vox being a big, or at least medium-sized news agency, for lack of a better term, raising a huge stink because YouTube is not like deplatforming Steven Crowder completely because Steven Crowder said something mean-spirited, which he's claiming to be homophobic. I don't know what it was really said. I don't follow Steven Crowder, don't care about Carlos Maza or Steven Crowder, but it's oddly working its way into the conversation of GameIndustry.biz in a weird way that feels inappropriate, quite frankly. GameIndustry.biz is clearly on tilt and upset about what's going on because they have put out no less than 3 articles in the last few hours, not even the day. I've seen no less than 3 articles coming out about this. Before starting this stream, YouTube said they weren't going to, that their evaluation of him, of the statements, were not a form of harassment and thus not violating whatever policy YouTube has. That being said, now I'm looking 4 minutes ago, YouTube appears to have demonetized Steven Crowder. That could be just from flagging in an automated system. So YouTube is always getting crammed in between these little petty arguments and the bigger argument of free speech, and are you going to be a platform that supports free speech, or are you going to be a platform that censors And in the end, mean-spirited, disgusting speech is the kind of speech that needs to be protected in free speech. Popular speech is never the first thing to get censored. Well, this should do something. I'm gonna just do this and then do this and try to keep that card alive as much as possible. In the long run of things,
Well played.
there are more important things to talk about in the video game industry by far than YouTube in general, and I don't believe Steven Crowder plays, covers, or talks about video games. I think Vox Media probably is the parent company of some organization that talks about video games. I wouldn't be surprised if GameIndustry.biz actually is a subsidiary of Vox Media, and so this is a Vox Media employee, quite literally. Shilling, or I don't know what a better word than shilling would be. Pushing for the censorship of Steven Crowder. And frankly, whether GameIndustry.biz is related to Vox Media or not, they're doing a very bad job at being a good journalist when you're pushing for censorship and whining about somebody being mean, because that's not really news. It really isn't. You can say the exact same thing for a lot of the political talking head shows in the United States in general. A lot of things like CNN fail to talk about policy and instead give time to the fact that President Trump is a jerk and is saying mean things. And that certainly isn't good news. I don't think it helps anything, and I don't think it really changes too many opinions. Alright. So, full health and give taunts. Take that, sucker. Alright. Hero power with a better one. Alright. Copy your opponent's power.
I'll take some of
I got him down to 6. We should be able to win, which is good because this is kind of a long tavern brawl. So I really don't want to have to play this a second time. Well, I mean a second time, I guess, excluding the fact that I'm also going to have to play it for the Asian and European account. Speaking of playing card games, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links game is full of purchases and moves to try and get you to spend real world money, no doubt. But it's not a terrible Yu-Gi-Oh! Game. Although I do want to ask this, if anybody knows, when did Yu-Gi-Oh! Only have 3 spaces for monsters? Is that a new thing? Because I could have sworn, I know for a fact because there was the Destiny board trap cards that had to spell the word Destiny, and that would have been DISTNY or DESTNY, which is 6. So there must have been 6 spaces at some point, and yet this game in particular seems to have
No! I will destroy you!
it seems to have shrinked it down, Dual Link, down to the point where you only have 3 spaces to have summon monsters, which definitely changes the game and makes some cards kind of useless. Maybe those cards have long since been banned in Yu-Gi-Oh! But yeah, I'm kind of playing it. Not really. I think it's probably not fair to say I'm actually playing it at all. What I'm doing is I'm playing Destiny Child still like crazy, because there's always some kind of event going on. The same is true in Yu-Gi-Oh! But I'm just not committed to that game since I installed the other one first. But also as I'm sitting around doing nothing and kind of taking a break, I always start playing Yu-Gi-Oh! As I'm watching, Curb Your Enthusiasm on Amazon Prime and Good Omens on Amazon Prime. I watched a lot of Amazon Prime streaming, which it's funny, I've had it for like a year and I barely ever used it. I never watched it, and there's a few Netflix things too, but
The hunt begin. I will fight with honor.
yeah, just taking it easy and watching TV instead of playing video games, taking a little break. It's not a terrible idea. The last thing I want to have happen is for me to just get bored of video games in general, because then my YouTube channel goes on hiatus and probably never comes back, as you've seen with so many YouTube streamers and YouTubers in general, is that either they do the video where it's time to change our channel and completely change what we're doing, or pretend like we're not completely changing what we're doing but still completely change what they're doing, or you have people just going on a break. So if I can have a good work-life balance as much as possible, that wouldn't be a bad idea. And watch a little TV every now and then, or a decent amount of TV. I'm still, frankly, watching a decent amount of TV. Let's start covering the news now that we are in the throes of just playing regular Hearthstone. Gamasutra has an article, "Get a job, Eno Games is hiring a front-end developer." I assume this is a front-end developer for a website type project, or like the main menu element of games. Eno Games is in Hamburg, Germany, so that's what the job would be. Let's see. Yeah. It's Flash and HTML browser clients. They want a front end for that. Although, why are they still making Flash games? That's a very interesting question for Eno Games. Is like, why are you still making Flash when Flash is totally not supported by pretty much anybody, including the makers of Flash? It's all HTML5. Next, we have a game on Steam called Be Wild Bots, which seems to me like it's mostly just robots that wander around and they kind of move in a systematic function. But yeah, there's nothing here too interesting. Just feels like you probably need to spin a few tiles to make the bots go in a few directions. This is $12.74 also, and that's another game example of a game that is probably not as it's an example of another game that's overpricing itself, which is something I've run into while doing the cleanup. The fall list cleanup is just a decent number of people that put out these games that are mediocre or low effort, and then you might be willing to pay $2 or $3 for them, but they want $20 or $69 for them, and it's like, what in the world are you even thinking? You've done no market research at all, obviously.
I wonder.
There's a couple other games that on the follow list certainly have had me have to spend 20 minutes just talking about that specific game, and him and haw and agonize over whether it is a game that I want on the wish list or not, even though a lot of them, even though it probably doesn't have enough reviews or relevancy or anything. I've also run into a few games that simply have no, like, man, I'm losing what I was talking about. I forgot what I was gonna say. There are definitely some games I've seen on the follow list that I wish were good and didn't make it to the wish list, and there's a lot on the follow list that are obviously bad and really shouldn't have been on the follow list in the first place. But regardless, almost every game I have to kind of agonize about in some level, because there's just so many. There's something usually about every game, something worth mentioning. I'm having to make real decisions, and that certainly is slowing down the process. Anyways, moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Crystal Command, which looks like it's a player versus player fighting game where you play as golems. It looks a little asset flippy, not the golems per se, because that seems pretty unique, but the backgrounds and the rest of it looks a lot heavily inspired, at least by World of Warcraft, and it doesn't really look like it's much of a game. It's free to play, online multiplayer. I've seen a lot of games that really would only work if they had a large player base for online multiplayer, and frankly, almost none of the games on the follow list are or have any chance of actually having a large player base for multiplayer. So they were kind of doomed from the start. Multiplayer games pretty much are the realms of either free-to-play mobile games or AAA developers. Otherwise, your game will not have enough of player base from online multiplayer, and it's frankly just too hard to program to multiplayer needs and desires. So putting in online multiplayer will take all of your programming time and resources for less results than you would realize.
Job's done.
Alright. Moving on, GameIndustry.biz has an article here, not including YouTube or Vox. The Institute of Play is shutting down. A New York nonprofit focused on integrating game design with education closes after 11 years. I imagine it is closing as a complete and total failure to editorialize. Here's the thing about getting things in schools. Unless you are bribing school boards or bribing the resource managers at school boards or the maybe state legislators, and by bribing I mean heavily lobbying them to put in certain things, you're not going to get those things in because people don't want change, they don't want inconsistencies. If you are going to try to put video games in education, you have to jump through all kinds of vendor requirements, and license requirements that different schools might have. It is usually a pretty good deal to sell to the government, but selling to schools in particular are probably the worst government agencies to sell to because they're always underfunded, they're always staffed. If you're putting games in education, then the teachers have to learn how to interact with these games, and that doesn't work. And then you have to also get the parents on board, so the parents aren't complaining about why is my kid just playing video games in your school. They should be doing real education. They should be doing something that's not fun, just like the schooling I had when I was a kid, is what a lot of parents will do. And frankly, there's months to years long conversations that need to be had about what is it schools need to teach, what is it schools want to teach, what is it that society needs from its citizens of the next generation, with automation, with other things being very likely to happen in between that time. Of course, you have to teach kids their ABCs and the ability to count, to do simple mathematics, but when you get into the ability to read above a certain level, it's probably asking more than has ever been taught. If you're asking on average for people to be able to read at a college level, for instance, where most presidents speak to a
For justice.
like 7th, 10th, maybe 11th grade level. Reading specific books, not really necessary, just history, what history needs to be taught and what history can be skipped is almost a philosophy or religious belief in more than a hard science, and how many hard sciences need to be taught and how many philosophies need to be taught. A lot of those conversations need to happen more than just putting video games in school. And you can see this from the other side, where the Minecraft education mode probably is super popular. That doesn't mean it's really doing too much to educate people on a hour-to-hour basis. Sure, Minecraft education version might be teaching a little bit about electronics and stuff, but the way it's being taught is
With honor.
inconsistent and inaccurate with the standard ways in which electronics would be diagrammed or described, you know, and or teaches the Boolean logic concepts, but it does it by using a redstone lamp and blocks and redstone dust. And guess what? There's no such thing as redstone in the real world. And I imagine the Institute of Play really was just a way for them to seek out donations and pay the board more than anything else. I mean, I'm not going to say that they didn't have intentions of doing things, but they didn't have the ability or really the intelligence to realize how difficult a task it would be to put video games or games in general in classrooms. This article says most recently Institute of Play partnered with Nintendo to bring Nintendo Labo to 100 classrooms, which is to say they did basically nothing. Based out of New York City, 100 classrooms is not even every classroom in New York City for one age group. And I'm sure they partnered with Nintendo in the sense that they gave a list of classrooms to send it to Nintendo, and Nintendo spent the money to send the Labos. So yeah, it's an interesting question, I suppose, about what is the right way. If your goal, which I think is a bad goal, but if your goal is to get video games and games in classrooms, what is the right way to do it? The easiest way is to make a license-friendly version of software that anybody can use, and license-friendly in this case is a weird point, because even open source for some schools is not acceptable.
Justice.
Like, and I usually it's for a very bad reason that it's not acceptable, but often open source in some locations is not something that they're willing to do. So yeah. Seems like GameIndustry.biz, I was scrolling down their page, they seem to be part of something called the Gamer Network, which is a whole connection of video game sites, including Eurogamer, USG, GameIndustry.biz, Metabomb, and Outside Xbox, Outside Extra, Digital Foundry, EGX. Let's see. I think I saw a longer list even than that. Let's see. Game Industry Japan, Push Square, Video Games 24/7, Games Edition, Rock Paper Shotgun, Jelly Deals, Nintendo Life, and US Gamer. So a significant amount of those names there are are what on the face of it you would have thought were competing against each other venues and mainstream video game journalist sites, and they aren't. So, like, even if you don't dig deep and find the evidence of other websites colluding and working together, a la the Game Journal Pro's secret chat group that they had, at least for a brief time, half of these websites are being literally run by the same organization, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're being kind of written and run by the same people too, in the sense that I wouldn't be surprised if some articles are just close to copy and pasted from one website to another. The only reason I keep GameIndustry.biz as a source of information is because they talk about inside baseball style business elements. That being said, most of the inside baseball business elements that they talk about are uninteresting to me. So if GameIndustry.biz keeps whining about YouTube and pushing for YouTube censorship, I'm gonna mute them, and I'm being extremely generous to say if at this, because if this was a game publisher or producer doing a DMCA to push censorship, then I would have already blacklisted them and never had anything to do with them more. And frankly, I should do that. It really sucks to try to get video game news and have to every few months realize that the source you're following is being run by somebody who wants to push some crazy social justice warrior agenda to the point where they can't just do their stated goal and do their job and talk about video games and only video games. Like, I could care less what their own personal opinion is and what they say in private or even in public outside of their websites. Like, I assume most of them have Twitter feeds full of them spouting off garbage. Alright, moving on. TechRaptor has an article. The Surge 2 release date was leaked as September 23rd. I do not remember what the Surge 1 is. So you're kind of in this weird position where I need to be reminded what the Surge 1 is, because that will drastically affect whether there's any interest whatsoever in the Surge 2. Seems like this is a player versus player game where you're fighting in armor with giant axes and lasers in a forest.
I wonder.
This doesn't look terrible, it just doesn't look particularly interesting either.
I must move quickly. Put your faith in the light.
Alright.
That minion have turned to get ready.
See, TechRaptor has a review for the Surge 1, so if I click on that, I guess I could get their general review of it.
No.
Let's see. Surge 1 looks a little less detailed in the art style, which kind of makes sense. It seems like it's a bunch of armor focus. They gave it an 8.5 grade. They linked to Steam, so we could just go to the Steam's website and see what it's about. So here's the Surge one. It's mostly positive, 74%. And I vaguely recall this game. It came out May 15th, 2017. But yeah, I'm not seeing a lot here. And that's not just because the screenshots aren't loading, but yeah, there's seems like it's you fight a bunch of robots, you get parts off the robots that increases your armor. It's maybe a bit more focused on sword or axe swinging than other games. I guess maybe it might have been kind of a futuristic answer to For Honor, since For Honor kind of failed. But yeah, I don't think the Surge really has that much relevancy in a weird way.
For justice.
I can't really think that I'd want to go back and play the Surge. It's a weird middle of the road style game is all the feeling I get from it. And so if I didn't want to play the first one, I probably don't want to play the second one. And it feels a lot like how I feel about Call of Duty games or first person shooters in general. It's like, yeah, it might be good, it just doesn't feel like the kind of game for me.
Must consider.
Next game we have on Steam is called Love Sam from Korean Linguistics Lab, which seems like a very odd name for a game. This kind of looks like a somewhat polished asset flip horror game. I'm seeing actually really nothing as far as characters or interactions. Like they've got no jump scare or anything. Even the show. This is $2.99 and it's English only. So why is it from a company called Korean Linguistics Lab? That makes no sense. And the game in general doesn't look good enough to want to be played. There we go.
Justice.
There. And as long as we're doing a win streak bonus here, we're at the beginning of the month. It's not a bad idea to just keep playing Custom Paladin. Let's get up to, see if we can get up to rank 15 on a win streak, and then we'll move to the other accounts. Next story we have is from Gamma Sutra. Microsoft rebrands Windows 10 Xbox app as the Xbox console companion. Microsoft, known for being wordy and using phrases that mean something completely different inside their company than what they mean outside their company. And known for renaming things and just doing weird things. This is another great example of that. The point you most take from this is that they're less focusing on Windows 10, which was supposed to be the Windows that you kept forever, and now they're focusing more on Xbox and the Xbox console in particular instead of the Xbox brand. Not really a lot more that you can take out of that, though. You're just recognizing that they've shifted focus, and inherently the fact that Microsoft is kind of constantly shifting focus is an example of the way the management style in Microsoft doesn't work. I've talked a lot about Valve and how they're libertarian. You have no bosses except for when you're evaluated. Then you have a secret boss.
Let me think.
Like, I've talked a lot about how that Valve system does not work at all to accomplish anything. Microsoft's works to accomplish things, but often it does it at the expense of a lot of personnel and a lot of other projects. It's a system that used to be stack ranking, and where there was always winners and losers and somebody that always didn't get a bonus. They've moved, or claimed to have moved, away from stack ranking, but clearly there's a department winner and a department loser, and every year the departments get reevaluated and the winners and losers are chosen again. So I'm sure there was a Windows 10 department that was getting all the focus and all the accolades and all being able to make all the decisions, and that's where they made the Windows 10 Xbox app. And now that Windows 10's division is less successful, that the Xbox division is gaining power. And that it really is kind of a high level tier there inside of Microsoft. There's the Windows division, there's the Office division, there's the Web Services Azure division, and they're all kind of fighting for their lives when each of them do really different things, and they often are trying to and succeed to force other divisions to add in elements and tie in ideas that really wouldn't tie in. Quite frankly, if each of the divisions, or the large divisions of Microsoft, were split up in a antitrust case, Microsoft would be at least 3 out of 4 companies that came out of a splitting up like that would probably be in better positions to just focus on the products that they should be making, instead of integrating elements that don't matter. Let's see. Alright, I gotta hit this. I could have hit that. Oh, I think I may have played that wrong. But yeah, if Xbox was just Xbox instead of also Microsoft, and Windows was just Windows, they still probably would work pretty well together with each other. They would be a friendly competitors. It'd be like how AT&T and Verizon both used to be AT&T, and they both charge about the same, and they both get together once a year in Las Vegas to determine exactly how each company is going to run. So there's totally still colluding with each other. It was probably illegally in that case, but yeah, just having the day-to-day decisions and operations being run by somebody who is only focused on running Xbox does a whole world of good. And the thing you'll see probably pretty soon is we'll see a HoloLens VR headset try to tie itself back into Xbox when it comes out and is ready to be sold, when really we've already done the Kinect, we've already seen that fail. There's no need for there to be yet another VR attempt for the next Xbox. And since E3 is happening soon, it would be a little surprising if the next Xbox comes out and there isn't at least some talk. Like, probably doesn't have to be a lot of talk, but some talk of a of a
For justice.
renewed focus or new focus on VR. This really is going to be in the case of it's going to be in the hands of Microsoft, and I imagine what Microsoft could best say is, we are going to support the Oculus Rift, the Valve Index, the HTC Vive, and that then what you can say is, well, instead of Microsoft trying to make their own VR headset and doing Kinect again, they're just going to say, we're going to let people plug in their expensive PC VR headsets into an Xbox One and see how well that works. And it really doesn't have to work too well, because maybe none of the software will ever actually support it. Or it could be something as simple as you're just plugging an HDMI video outside of the Xbox into the HDMI video in of a VR headset, and it's not doing much other than that. That would be the way I would go, instead of announcing something new or developing something new. It really comes down to whether they've been spending the last few years developing something new and they're too invested financially to not bring it out. It would be a smart move if they just passed the buck and said they were going to support PC VR games. Or if they said, actually the consoles aren't going to support VR, but any game, almost every game that's coming out for the Xbox 2 is also coming out for Windows, so you can play those games via VR on PC.
What to do?
That works pretty well too. But the PlayStation 5 is certainly not going to convince a lot of people to purchase it just because it has PlayStation VR support. And they've already said they're not going to be releasing a new VR headset with the PlayStation 5. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Shattered Tale of the Forgotten King, which is not from the developers of Dark Souls, as far as I can tell, which is from this Redlock studio who I've never heard of, and I'm fairly certain there was a Forgotten King in Dark Souls. There's probably plenty of kings in Dark Souls, and that's kind of what I'm getting the feeling here, is that you have a platforming game, I guess, more than a RPG where you hack and slash, but then it does seem like you're going to take on some big enemies. So a half Dark Souls clone, half platformer that seems to also switch between 3D and 2.5D. There's a lot of things in this video that I'm seeing that potentially are going to be questionable. Like, particularly the length of this game is a question. That being said, this early access game is $24.99. It's English and French. I'll put this on the fall list and see if it comes out of early access in 6 months from now, and see if anybody reviewed it. And of course you run into the problem of yes, it's been reviewed, but it was reviewed within the first month that it came out of early access, so it may have changed a lot, or maybe it hasn't changed at all. I think I'm gonna lose at this rate. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Yo-Yo Games shuts down its publishing division after struggling to, quote, add value. So the Game Maker Studio 2 creator, Yo-Yo Games, which Game Maker Studio 1 or 2 is almost certainly not software you should ever bother to learn to use. Skip straight to Unity, skip straight to Unreal. You'll learn something that is much more industry standard and more helpful. And if you can't learn how to program in either Python or C++, it probably should be C++, for Unity Unreal, then you won't ever be good enough to make games. That's just the case. Better you figure that out quickly instead of convincing yourself that you can be a video game developer using RPG Maker or Game Maker Studio. You're just gonna delude yourself, and you're best off not doing it. As for the article and them shutting down a publishing division, yeah, being a publisher has, as an idea, has fallen apart for a lot of people that were making publishing divisions a few years ago, because Steam allows you just to self-publish via Steam Direct. The thing that a lot of the people who became publishers in the last 5 years, what they were doing was not really offering any financial support or in any way any other kind of support, and instead they were just taking a cut of your sales over the lifetime for perhaps a loan of money and nothing else. And money is kind of the least thing you need when developing a game. Like, you don't get me wrong, you will need money when developing a game, but you can get money. What you need is an advertising department, a PR department, a management department, a set or a team, an established team of programmers or game testers or debuggers. There's a lot of things that a good publishing division can do. However, I'm not sure any of them are doing that. Like, I think Devolver Digital might be doing it, but I doubt Gearbox's publishing division is giving much support. I doubt Ubisoft's publishing division is giving much support. Starbreeze is about to go bankrupt, so it clearly can't be giving too much support. Let's see, Warlock class cards and Hunter class cards. We just need to do one of those, and also do this Tavern Brawl. 2K's publishing division, maybe they give a little bit of support, maybe, but I don't know.
Heroes versus Nefarian. The light shall bring victory.
In a real way, what you have, particularly I would say in the last couple of years, is every AAA game developer had a publishing division. Square Enix, for instance, is publishing games. But then they didn't want those small indie games to really compete against their AAA games even, so they wouldn't give them very much support. Or they would just choose the wrong games to publish. So the publishing divisions on the other side aren't doing their jobs because they're not able to evaluate a game pitch and figure out whether that game is going to be successful or not. This is probably, if I was to guess, some cronyism too. Like, the Kojima, who's making Death Stranding, is being published I believe by Sony. And of course Kojima can way more easily
So easily manipulated.
like anytime something like that, somebody like Kojima is given that opportunity to publish something like Death Stranding, there's probably 100 other game developers who really did make pitches and try to get funding and were rejected just because they didn't know the right people. And it clearly can't be based off merit, because we see self-published indie games come out relatively frequently, and then we see a lot of bad publisher supported games come out, and those games should really reverse roles and reverse places. There really should be no good indie games that don't have some form of publisher support. Publishers should be banging on the door, and you see that in some Kickstarter games. Once the Kickstarters get funded, all of a sudden they remove the game from the Kickstarter fund and go, oh, actually we got a publishing deal with this company. That should be kind of the case always.
I was right all along.
Let's see, if I played this and then played the heal spell. See, because this doesn't heal. This doesn't heal me. Kind of desperately need my minion that will heal me. I might have tried to burn through the news a little bit faster if I'd realized that what I was going to end up having to do is go through this tavern brawl several times. Let's see. So you want to keep a decent amount of people on the field. Okay, can I do this? Alright, this
Thank you.
works next turn.
Job's done.
Fine. So I think we've got a victory here. Enough to come over here and look at this game. We have Katawada Kak. It's Kek with Ine VR? That doesn't seem Japanese. It looks kind of Japanese, but I don't know that language. If that is supposed to be a language or if that is just a random assortment of letters. This looks like an asset flip game where in VR looking at animated plants, flowers. Might be something interesting in that, but I don't see it. It's $5.99 and it's English only. So also has only one achievement, so it might be an achievement game. It's also early access. There's like 3 strikes against this game already. Alright. This. This. And let's see. Here. Here. And then end the turn. See, I think I can win here pretty easily. Just gotta play these cards. Let's see.
Welcome to the Grand Tournament, champion.
Ooh, he increased his hero ability, which means I could now copy his hero ability. If I so desired. Just have to see. Meanwhile, Gamma Sutra has an article. Starbreeze is laying off a quarter of its entire workforce. Struggling pay TA2 developer Starbreeze intends to lay off 60 members of staff. So they have 240. Draw a card. Add Wing Fury. Give them health. And do that. And do that. And hopefully that didn't do so much damage that it messed me up. Because I kind of need to heal this guy. Let's see. Apparently by laying off 60 employees, they will save $317,000 each month in costs, which I assume a lot of that is healthcare and savings contributions as much as it is actual take-home pay. Of course, the secret little lie behind that is that a lot of people really don't need healthcare. A lot of people do, and a lot of people would prefer to control where they spend their own money on, where and what they spend their own money on. Let's see, I should have done some other things. Isn't this? Oh, this is whenever the hero is healed. It really is crazy to tie in healthcare and retirement to an employer, tying people to stay at their jobs. I guess the inherent admission there is that if people were freer to quit their jobs, they would, and that really is the society that everybody should push for and strive for, is that there are so many job opportunities out there, or there's so little a need to actually have a job, that you can at any point and just quit your job and go do whatever you please without being tied into staying at a place because of medical bills or other elements. Let's see. We've got a victory here.
Job's done.
You made it to the glorious
Interesting. You can't kill this guy in one hit kills. You have to do the 3 phases.
The light serves me now.
But I can hit him in the next turn. So we'll win. Next we have a game on Steam called Nevrosa Spider Song, which it looks kind of like Limbo, but the screenshots kind of look like there's nothing being shown much otherwise. Are you playing as a spider crawling around and looking from the perspective of the spider? Yeah, this really looks like it's a VR horror game. And I don't even see any spiders. There's a giant spider. in a screenshot.
Well played.
Requires VR. It's $1.99, so you know it's really, really bad quality for a VR game. Simplify Chinese and Russian. Man. Yeah, I kind of hate that I'm right about that element so often. It really sucks that so many times we run into a scenario where I say, oh yeah, if it only supports English and Russian, if it only supports English and Chinese, it's a low effort game, and then I show a low effort game and I'm surprised, oh yeah, it really does only support that language. It does prove me not to just be some kind of xenophobe or have some specific bias against those countries, or unjustified bias against those countries, or those languages per se. But it sucks how blatant it is. Alright, well, moving on. Hunter class cards is what we'll be playing. We might as well be playing ranked. Gamatsu has an article here. Bloodstained Ritual of the Night interview with producer Kojiri Igarashi at the Bit Summit 7 Spirits. I did realize something. There's a huge amount of stigma about having tattoos in Japan. So it's a little weird, or at least there used to be. Maybe times are changing. It's a little weird to have the bloodstained main character here have what looks like a rose tattoo and petal tattoos on there. In Japan, at least it used to be the case that if you had a tattoo, you were assumed to be in the Yakuza, and you were not welcome at public beaches, and you were not welcome in public baths, anywhere where a tattoo might be shown more prevalently. And I don't think they really even made any distinction. So even if you were just a foreign, like blonde teenage college kid with a Mickey Mouse tattoo or something, I think they still would have that same stigma, just because it became a rule, and rules must be followed to the letter in the Japanese people's minds, to the point where they'll bully you if you're not following ridiculous little rules. Sometimes that seems maybe that's changing, or maybe just Koji Igarashi, in his depiction and in his preference, he likes tattoos. I'm sure there probably is a lesser outspoken subculture in Japan that loves tattoos, as in the same way that there is a subculture in the United States of people who love tattoos. Personally, I don't recommend anybody get a tattoo because it just does not last well. It's a permanent element that fades and has to be touched up and has to be reworked, and you don't want to be an 82-year-old grandfather or grandmother and having to go get your tattoos touched up or removed. So I guess if there was maybe a more temporary way to do it, where the tattoo either broke up and dissolved after a few years, or if the tattoos never faded at all, then I might find them more logical to get. On the other hand, if you could like implant some kind of screen into your arm and it's just animating and moving all the time and it never fades and never needs to be touched up, I'd probably be all for something like that, although medical concerns certainly. Like, there's even a little bit of concern with tattoos, not a lot, because people have been getting tattoos for thousands of years, but there's a little bit of a concern of the ink being absorbed into your bloodstream. And it's taking its sweet time. Next we have a game on Steam called Weaving that doesn't even really deserve the time of day. It is a Flappy Bird clone at a weird angle where you're flying up and down trying to fly through rings, making it 3D for really no reason, and then displaying it like it's a 2D game. It's 74 cents discounted, English only. Not something. I probably just opened it for a brief second and should have done something different, or not opened it. This was an interesting tweet from CD Projekt Red, and this, I guess, is an indication of timelines. CD Projekt Red, 1 day ago, tweeted out, "Our Steam Game Awards have arrived. Thank you for your continuous supports and votes over the years." So the Steam Game Awards happened in like November, didn't it? I think it was November. I think it was before the new year. So these awards, which don't look that good, quite frankly, these really don't feel like they needed to have taken 6 months for them to have been made and delivered. Particularly when you could easily have had all of the statues made and delivered to Valve's office and then had an engraving company engrave the title at the bottom in less than a couple of days. So that Valve time seems to even include sending out awards. That being said, the Steam Game Awards are kind of a joke too. So yeah, I don't know what you more could take from that. Let's see.
What to do? What to do?
Next we have a game on Steam here that I'm not going to show for YouTube friendliness called The Corner Saga. It is a low effort game where you play as a corner, but half of the screenshots do have a naked female, probably asset flip 3D model on a table, and then the rest of the rooms and designs seem very asset flippy. So this is a manipulative, it's a new idea certainly, it's not something we've seen done before, but it's a new way to try to get full nudity in the screenshots to try and sell your game. The game is tagged nudity, so it's not lying about that, but this is another one of those examples of a game of the growing pains of Steam, where these screenshots should be easily capable of being auto-detected and flagged, and there's really no way to flag screenshots easily. The Corner Saga is asking for $4.49 discounted by 10%, and episode 1 of the Corner Saga is all that's being sold right now, and it's also on Google Play Android. So it is basically a cell phone game, a low effort cell phone game at that point. Did I play enough hunter cards? Well, we're getting the win streak bonus, so as long as we continue to get the win streak bonus, we should keep on playing on this account. But we do need to switch over to Warlock cards, so that means we'll probably lose our win streak bonus here. This next game we have, to my surprise, is Zed. And I'm very, very surprised to see it's mostly negative. This is being published by Cyan Worlds, although it's not developed by Cyan Worlds. It's just being published. And this might be, frankly, it is exactly the same as I was talking about before. Cyan Worlds, the developers have missed, and the publishers have missed, and Abduction. Not even really the publishers of Myst 3, 4, or 5. So they self-published way back in the day for Myst 1 and Riven, the sequel to Myst, which would be Myst 2. But they really have no business being publishers and publishing a game like this, or any games other than self-publishing and kickstarting their own re-releases of their games. And apparently Zed is really, really bad. It's $17.99, which is a little surprising because I thought it was probably going to be a full price game, and I thought it was going to be a continued evolution of the concepts, or doing something a little different from what Myst and Abduction did, where Myst and Abduction had elements that were mostly just puzzle-like. Let's see. Let's see if I can zoom in the
What you want?
text. I got it nice and big. I think my eyesight may be getting worse. Well, or they're making the font smaller. Let's see. This. And then that. Or do this. And that. And hope that hits them. And it didn't. So we have a not recommended here review. Too long, didn't read. The idea of the story, the idea of this story spoke to you. I'd really recommend checking out Sanitarium instead, which is a cheap on Steam and Good Old Games. It's also about a man trapped in his hand and grappling with his past. Sanitarium is touching, scary, hilarious, and delightful. But apparently Zed is not, unless I read the rest of this. Let's see if I can read another. This is obviously a passion project from the makers. The story is nice, the voice acting and the music are excellent, reminiscent of the Stanley Parable and even more than more like the Beginner's Guide. Those games, however, had a quirk. Something fun that would make it playable. This story isn't a game, it's an audiobook that lets you walk around, clicking all of the highlighted items and solving very simple slide puzzles to advance to the next room. There's a journal in which you can read the story behind each item you click on, but no penalty or reward if you don't do that. Let's see. Coming from Cyan, I was a bit disappointed, played it through in about 2 hours. If you're expecting a puzzle game, don't buy it. If you like listening to a story while you click things, do. Don't buy this if you're looking for a puzzle game. This is a short walking simulator telling a life story. Okay. So, looking at those reviews, it seems like Zed failed to be advertised as what it really was, and I kind of fully agree with that idea too. There's definitely a case to be made that I thought personally Zed was going to have some puzzles and some frankly I thought it was going to be groundbreaking new ideas, more puzzles than Abduction had. I thought it was going to do a lot more and be a $70 game. And to see it now at 30% positive of 10 user reviews the day it comes out and being described as a walking simulator is quite shocking. Although not super shocking, because in retrospect, if I think about what they show, it really is just voiceover while you're walking around interacting with things. That being said, if you had remade Myst and every item that you picked up and every puzzle that you interacted with had some audio dialogue play around it, that would be a really good game, and it still would be very much a puzzle game. Zed is going to go on the follow list just because I'm giving it special consideration. It might still have some relevancy because of Cyan. I don't think it probably would. I'd probably purchase it just for that reason. Cyan is also in the middle of promoting and working on their next game, which promises to actually be more of a game. Although I'm not sure if we should really have faith. If it hurts Cyan as a company to publish this game Zed at all. If this was a game that just had been published by the developers as a self-published game, a lot less people would come in with a lot less expectation. They'd go, oh, this is a pretty decent walking simulator, and that would be that. Tying the name of Cyan Worlds, or Cyan Ventures as it is labeled, is hurting it, not helping it. And it's not helping Cyan either, although it probably is giving them some money. Moving on, we have a article here from Gamatsu. Where is my mouse cursor? THQ Nordic to announce 3 new titles on June 5th, 6th, and 7th. So that would be today, tomorrow, and the next day. So unless this article has been updated, I don't think it's happened quite yet. It's supposed to happen at 7 a.m. Pacific time. Well, that should have happened by now then. Interesting. Why did it not occur then? The event has passed. What in the world did I just click on? timeanddates.com. You're gonna make links to a website that just is talking about time and dates. That might actually be helpful for people, actually. Adjust the time. Okay. What was the new daily quest we just got, by the way? Divine Shield minions. But I want to switch to Paladin and play 6 Divine Shield minions instead of sticking with Warlock class cards. Nah, we'll just stick with Warlock class cards and keep playing. Let's see. THQ Nordic's Twitter.
Gul'dan versus Maiev.
None can escape my fury.
Your soul shall be mine!
Apparently, the first game they announced is SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom. Apparently it's a remake of a SpongeBob SquarePants game. So if these are the 3 games that are being announced and you're starting with SpongeBob SquarePants, then that pretty much tells me that these are going to be kids games. And frankly, that's the exact opposite of what I had hoped to see happen with THQ Nordic. The last thing I want them to do is just become THQ again and toy headquarters and getting terrible Nickelodeon licenses and making terrible video games and re-releasing them. Maybe they're not really doing that. Maybe they're just going through the ones that would actually still sell, which is slightly believable that SpongeBob would still sell pretty well, but even opening the door to a new Nickelodeon-based game from THQ Nordic sounds like a terrible idea. Like they learned nothing at all from the way their business fell apart the first time. Seriously? Gamatsu has an article here. Jumanji, the video game, announced for the PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. This is the Jumanji new movie, which was pretty much a video game in itself because that was the concept. I don't even think they get sucked into the world of I don't think they get sucked into the world of a board game. They get sucked into the world of an old video game in the movie. So I think the movie was called Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle. This does not look nicely animated here. This looks like a low polygon, low effort cutscene. So my suspicion is that this is a top-down twin stick style game where you're going to be very zoomed out from the angle perspective, and you're never going to get to see any of the characters. Not that that really matters. It probably isn't much of a game either, if I'm just going to be estimating.
Come dance to my song.
That's kind of like 2 bits of bad news back to back, quite frankly. Is like, hey, we're going back to making terrible games, terrible kids games, or terrible games designed specifically to target kids. I'm just playing these cards for no reason. Next we have an article from Gamatsu. Raging Loop is coming to the West for the PS4 and Switch in 2019. Raging Loop is a psychological horror visual novel.
I hope you like my invention.
Apparently. Let's see. There's a bit of a trailer here. I think this has something to do with a cult, which I've only heard of one cult out of Japan, but it would be very believable that there would be some spin-off Buddhist or Shinto group out in the boondocks of Japan that,
My shield for Arga.
particularly depending on the timelines.
I fight.
Why me? Why me?
Job's done.
Next we have a bit of news. Vampire the Masquerade Quarters of New York has been announced for Switch and PC, which I don't know what this is supposed to be. Says it's a unique, atmospheric, single-player narrative experience set in the Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition. It will launch for Switch and PC Q4 of 2019, with potential PS4 and Xbox One versions taking a wait-and-see approach. It has a Steam page already. What this feels like to me is they're either trying to tie into Bloodlines 2, and there are different people who have different licenses to Bloodlines 2, and then who have Vampire the Masquerade bloodlines, or they are.
Stop copying me!
Oh, well, I don't even know what else it would be.
Stop copying me!
Like, I don't see, if one person owns all the licenses and controls all the licenses to Vampire the Masquerade, I don't know why you would announce Bloodlines 2, start getting hype on that, start putting out videos for that, and then announce Coteries of New York as a game that would come out before Bloodlines 2 did, which seems like a side project and seems like it's not likely to have anywhere as much of a budget as the other games. Let's see, do this.
We are one.
And then
Why
do
me?
this.
The light protects me.
Why me?
And here's the Steam page, and it's being labeled as an interactive fiction. And we're just seeing screenshots of backgrounds. This, to me, sounds like they're releasing a visual novel, a Western visual novel with the Vampire the Masquerade as the design, as the world it's set in. That seems crazy. Like, I would like to see some more information around this. That being said, like, there's other vampire games by far to the already on Steam, so even though you might have the name recognition of Vampire the Masquerade, you probably are
Copying me!
going to lose
Stop copying me!
some of that pretty quickly.
The light protects me.
Let's do that.
Job done.
Coteries of New York, though, doesn't have a release date, so I don't have a reason to put it on the follow list. We'll just wait until it actually comes out and see what it is.
Oh, up to no good.
I would argue that Vampire the Masquerade has failed to have any mainstream influence when Twilight was happening and those books were happening. There should have been some well-written stories in the Vampire the Masquerade universe that either got republished or turned into movies, or, you know, got into the mainstream idea. The weird thing here is, like, iVampire from DC. You probably could have gotten the license to iVampire pretty easily at any point from DC, and Warner Brothers could have made a movie like that. Blade as a movie with the Marvel universe should have been a thing, more of a focus, certainly. But there really hasn't been any big vampire movie for quite a while. And even when there were big vampire movies, they weren't that big.
Victory or death! Your soul shall be mine!
I mean, you really are probably going back as far as Interview with a Vampire or Dracula Dead and Loving It, which is a parody of vampire movies, or the original Dracula movie in black and white, something like that. And that, I suppose, in a lot of ways, builds right around the monster movies that they were trying to bring back and failed to do, with Mummy and then the remake of Mummy. But they were seemingly taking their sweet time also to make those monster movies when there would have been better suited it would have been way better suited to start with their best foot forward and not try to do the Invisible Man first, or the Mummy first. They should have started with Dracula.
Put this apple on your head.
Next we have an article from Gamatsu. No Straight Roads delayed to 2020. New publisher and PS4 a physical edition announced. That seems to me like that's a big problem. A big problem with this game, No Straight Roads. I don't recognize this game, No Straight Roads, at all, but if you're delaying your game, if you're announcing a new publisher, that means your original publisher refused to give you any more money to continue to work on the game and finish it because they had no faith that they'd recoup their money. And that doesn't mean the old publisher still isn't getting a cut. It just means that the new publisher is getting the other 50% of the proceeds from your game. Probably not 50-50, but I wouldn't be surprised when you have to switch publishers if you're getting down to the point where you're getting barely 20 or 10% of the proceeds as the developer. Alright, let's do this. And do that. Do that. And then we do that.
Job's done.
And we're good to go to play this next turn. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Pop and Splat. This is just Bubble Bobble. A Bubble Bobble clone. Doesn't look terrible. Doesn't look really interesting or good enough to make me want to play it. $9.99 English only. Although it does say it has full audio in English, which who knows what that really means. Let's see. Darn it. All that setup. All that setup work to have a field full of minions. Next we have a game called Pokemon Blast, which seems like this is clearly designed to be name confusion with Pokemon. Although I don't know how dumb a parent would have to be to think this is the Pokemon their kids have been talking about. This looks like a garbage cell phone game. Otherwise, it's $1.49 discounted and it's English only.
So many possibilities.
Like, I totally get that a parent may not know the name of every Pokemon or anything like that, but they should be able to have to spell the name. It's Pokemon. If you can't figure that much out, you've been living under a rock for several decades. Next we have a game on Steam called Glorious Companions, which looks like a real-time strategy. This doesn't look very polished and it looks like it might be multiplayer only. It's early access, $26.99, English and Polish, and it says it's single player only. Interesting. Because really this feels more like a game where you'd have multiple people playing at the same time, working together. If that's not the case, then it's just a tactical placement, turn-based fighting real-time, not even a real-time strategy game at that point because it's taking turns. Yeah, I see nothing in that game that would interest me.
The light protects me.
see. Next, we have a game on Steam called Guns of Midnight, which says it's an adventure cyberpunk retro game. Let's skip this video forward. Looks like it's a really zoomed out, pixel looking shooter game with some platforming too. I'm not seeing anything visually impressive here because it's so zoomed out. There's just no detail, and all I could do is look at this other video. It really feels like you're probably only playing a couple levels, and then that is that. This is $3.74 discounted. English with full audio. Yeah, Guns of Midnight, not intriguing.
Why do you call?
Copying me! Stop copying me!
Okay, how do we want to do this?
My books!
Do this. Do this.
I
Do
fight.
that. I don't know if that was the right combination or what.
Light the fuses!
It isn't a week on Steam if there isn't a new RPG Maker game, so we have Il Sol e la Luna, the Sun and the Moon. If I translated that right, I'm pretty sure I did. Looks just like an RPG Maker game. English is not supported. $1.99 Italian only. You don't see a lot of Italian only games come out. That being said, there really isn't any good time or any smart move to make an RPG Maker game and try and sell it.
As you command.
Next we have on Steam, Trover Saves the Universe. Apologies for this weird looking video with these eyes and faces for eyes. This is from the guy who voices Morty in Rick and Morty, and it's pretty much just a video game kind of starring the voices of at least Morty from Rick and Morty, doing some really weird and bizarre stuff. It's $29.99. Apparently DLC is on the way. I thought this was going to require VR, but it seems like that's not the case. Play on TV, monitor, or VR headset displays. So that this game has chosen to avoid
So many
the problem
possibilities.
of VR only games somewhat. That being said, I don't think that there's much of a game here unless you like Rick and Morty. I'm gonna put this on the phone list, but frankly it is so weird looking that I'm not sure I really would want to go down the route of dealing with any of these games or playing Trover Saves the Universe. There's a couple of other Rick and Morty games already that are VR exclusive. That, yeah, maybe if I got VR I'd get them, but Rick and Morty itself is kind of this weird middle ground where you're not.
Put this apple on your head.
The light protects me.
Well, the way I feel about Rick and Morty at this point is it's alright. It's not great.
Stop copying
It's
me!
not terrible.
Stop copying me!
Let's see. Let's see. Next we have an article from TechRaptor, Stellaris Ancient Relics Review. That belongs in a space museum. I have not heard of this game, Stellaris Ancient Relics. It looks like it is very much a space 4X type game or a space strategy game. Not something that would really interest me. They gave it an 8.0 grade. Stellaris' latest DLC, Ancient Relics, explores a familiar sci-fi trope in a unique way, so it's DLC for Stellaris. It's an excellent addition to the game that features great writing and a ton of depth. Prose makes planetary exploration interesting. Relics that are worth fighting over. Archaeology leads to story content. The cons are archaeology is relatively risk-free and almost too straightforward with no surprises. So if you like Stellaris, you'll like the DLC. It is a little odd feeling, in my opinion, to
I fight.
to go through that route, though, and have. What am I trying to say? Well, I'm losing my train of thought as I'm trying to play the game also.
Why do you roll? Job done.
Oh, I was gonna say it's a little odd for TechRaptor to be reviewing DLC content. If they started covering all the DLC content for every game, that would be a real odd experience and a lot of articles they'd have to write. I don't know if I'm gonna win here. I need something pretty good in the last 4 cards. Destroy a friendly minion, add 2 lackeys to your hand. Summon a random 2-cost minion.
This one's a real page turner. Bubble, bubble. Somebody order a bomb. I'll just ride on it.
GameIndustry.biz has an interesting article, although I don't really have time to be reading it right now. To Infinite and Beyond, attracting new Halo fans without a new game. 343 Industries, Kiki Wolfkill explains how the studio's transmedia efforts will prepare the world for Master Chief's return. I don't really believe in transmedia efforts. I've not seen them succeed so far. That being said, they kind of have to do something. You really cannot deny that Halo has not been out. There hasn't been any Halo media out for quite a while. So there is basically a whole new generation that you have to attract. Okay. We gotta do this, and we gotta do this carefully. I hit this, and I discarded that card that I probably needed. I played the wrong card. Darn it. Well, I've lost. You'll never know how terribly I played that last turn because I played it so bad. I could have potentially won there, or at least gotten closer by far, and I played the absolute wrong card. I got a little too excited there and did not do the math. Anyways, I'm gonna lose, so let's move over. We've got a game here called Piggy PRTER. Is that Peter Adventure? It's being terribly translated. apparently. This looks like a really low effort Chinese game. Two pigs playing volleyball, mobile game looking garbage. They want, I believe that is $5.99 for it, and it says it supports full audio for a whole host of languages, and I don't believe any of this. This clearly is a game not to spend any more time on. Can you really sell a game like that? I kind of don't think you could. Like, it'd be really hard to sell a 2D 1 versus 1 volleyball game. And if you are selling that, you probably are only selling it because you're doing something like Dead or Alive does and putting a lot of anime girls in it with breast physics. Well, one more game. I broke the streak, but I need to play one more game anyways. Moving on, we have an article from Gamasutra. Dragon Quest Walk is a Pokemon Go style AR game from Square Enix. What concerns me as somebody who is not in the know as far as Dragon Quest, the main character in Dragon Quest that is known is the slimes. So you're doing Pokemon Go, but you're only capturing slimes of maybe different sizes. Like, I don't even know what these creatures are. I imagine there's some skeletons, and I imagine these are golems, but how many and what kind of variety of creatures are in the Dragon Quest game that you can do this? I'm seeing a decent collection of creatures, so maybe they're gonna make some more, or maybe there's enough already. Maybe you just have different colored slimes all over the place. You can see this trailer is extremely Japanese centric because Dragon Quest is so popular in I didn't click on anything. It's so extremely popular in the Japanese area, particular, which also might be a problem because if they come out with this game and it works really well, Dragon Quest Walk works really well in Japan, it might work like garbage around the rest of the world because nobody has programmed it. That was the thing that Ingress had an advantage there, is because Ingress had already been set up. It had already established, like, these are the locations according to Google Maps where we want there to be elements of creatures summoned. We don't want to do it inside of churches. We don't want to do it in cemeteries. We don't want to do it inside of schools and things that people should not be wandering into. So there was a lot of work Ingress fixed before Pokemon Go even came out, and if that's the same case for Square Enix, I don't imagine that there would be another series Square Enix has above Dragon Quest that would be more intriguing to sell an AR game around. I would also heavily suspect that there's gonna be some big problems with this Dragon Quest Walk, just in the fact that it's too late. It's so late to the party compared to Pokemon Go. So many people have played Pokemon Go and either gotten really committed to it or given up on those type of games in general. You're 5, maybe 10 years past the point. If Square Enix was going to do this, they should have done it very quickly, and even if it had to be a early access beta game that didn't even have augmented reality or location data built in, you could have done something. Clearly, you could have had a system of type in your location and address, or just check in at a slightly different location than where you've checked in last time. Or just use a step counting function to count the number of steps spent.
Thanks to the boy.
Meanwhile, I think Pokemon Go and the Pokemon games are expanding into tons of other things, so why leave it now? Let's play this. Hope this hits him. It doesn't. We'll hit that. Next, we have a game on Steam called Beyond the Stars VR, which seems to look slightly interesting. I imagine what this is probably more of a presentation than anything else. You've got these statues with different abilities and these constellations. I'm not sure what else the game has to really offer, though. It seems like you manipulate things with a stick. Just like the way. This doesn't look bad when you know that it's free to play, though. It requires VR and it's English only, but I'm gonna put this on the follow list because this doesn't look terrible. And maybe I'll even do some research at some point and find out that there's a Beyond the Stars not in VR, and then that might make it a better offer in general. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article. Sci-fi survival game Mars Alive for PlayStation VR launches June 18th in North America and June 19th in Europe. So this is a PlayStation VR game. Possibly one of the last PlayStation VR exclusive games to come out. Although, probably not. There'll probably be quite a few still coming out as support dies up. We're still getting Vita games. And there is a rumor that the 3DS is reaching its end of life in Japan. So Nintendo may not be making any more 3DSs or in favor of the 2DSs. I assume this might be the end of the 3DS and not the new 3DS. That might be the case too. Next we have a Gamatsu article, Toro to Puzzle, Doko Demo, Isyo, announced for smartphones. This looks like a Candy Crush clone. Who is making this? Sony Interactive Entertainment and ForwardWorks making a Candy Crush clone. Interesting. I would not be surprised if this does not make it to the West, though, and as a smartphone game. Let's hit this. And hit this. And then hit that. Start hitting those. Let's see. Platinum Games tweeted out, and we'll probably have an article about it. Nier Automata is now sold over 4 million discs and digital downloads. So over 4 million units sold. Which I think at that point, 4 million for Nier Automata being such a Japanese-centric and kind of niche product, you kind of are hitting the level of saying it is a major success. Because in comparison, I think God of War has only sold 10 million. And so if Nier Automata can sell half of what God of War sells, where God of War is a Western game that was designed to appeal to all of the planet, and Nier Automata was clearly a Japanese game designed to only appeal to Japanese people or people that like Japanese games. That's a big selling point for the cool Japan mentality. Also, like Nier Automata with 2V and the other characters showing bits of underwear and scantily clad high fashion clothing at times, it's kind of amazing to see a game like that sell so well in general. Certainly Nier Automata has inspired quite a lot of lewd cosplay.
Nice.
Well, at least I'll know I've played all the cards here, even though I'm about to lose again. Gamatsu has an article here. NES, the Nintendo Switch Online adds City Connection. I don't recall that game. Double Dragon 2, The Revenge. That's probably pretty good. And Volleyball on June 28th. Volleyball almost seems like it's getting released just because it's summer. Let's see. After breaking into an exclusive paint store in New York City, you're on the run from the cops carrying leaky 10-gallon cans of paint. Drive over every mile in New York City highways before catching a boat to England. That sounds kind of... I've never heard of City Connection. Maybe this is only a like Famicom style game. Nope, I do not recognize this game. I've never seen this before in my life. And that kind of goes to show you've got some problems. This feels very much like that's an Atari game that was ported, or they made a new version. Double Dragon 2, by the way, not looking great in retrospect. And Volleyball might be your best bet. Although I would argue sports games, particularly if you're having kids play sports games, shouldn't be played by kids. They should just go out and play the sports for real. And if you were going to play a modern volleyball game, again, you're back to Dead or Alive beach volleyball type games. Like Splatoon would be in a really good position, quite frankly, to make a Summer Games style side game. It would make so much sense if the Splatoon characters decided to play volleyball, decided to well, I don't know what other summer games you could figure out and make, but there's probably a few out there. Put a mini game where you're cooking hot dogs and burgers. Put a beanbag toss, that beanbag toss game, sometimes called cornhole, although it's very regional. Put that in. You could have swimming elements, certainly. You could have 100-meter dash and things like that. Well, I can't re-roll any of these, but I'll need to play some cheap minions, some Divine Shield minions, and some Priest minions, I guess. Priest games. First, we need to do this Tavern Brawl. That lineup, though, it's already pretty bad for the NES Switch Online releases. The lineup is already scraping the bottom of the barrel, and that's not really necessary. They certainly could have thought it out better and released the best games first, or most of the best games first. If Double Dragon 2 is your best game to release in the first year, you've made the major mistakes. None of those cards are helpful. Next, we have a game on Steam called As Divine Dios, I guess is how you'd pronounce this. This doesn't directly just look like an RPG maker, and there's actually some animation style being shown here of the characters. That being said, I think the majority of this probably is the new RPG maker, MX or MV, if I was to guess. And while there is a slight bit of polish to this, if I'm going to play an RPG, why play a new one when there's so many well-known popular old ones? $11.69 discounted, English and Japanese interface titles. I'll go ahead and play this and then return. I'm gonna have to pay a little bit more attention while doing these Tavern Brawls. Gamatsu has an article here. Ubisoft confirms Watch Dogs Legion full reveal set for E3 2019. It is kind of applaudable, though, that they are going to actually just confirm it instead of denying it or saying nothing, because they could easily have just said nothing and then announced it during E3. Although I guess once you've got your hype out there, you might as well just get the hype out, and it wasn't that big of a leak. One assumes that Watch Dogs Legions is Watch Dogs 3 and not a side story game or anything like that. And I think as a series, Watch Dogs might be moving closer to a good idea than a bad idea as a product.
Job's done.
I feel like I'm gonna lose these guys. Well, I did lose one of them. The one I wanted to not lose. Alright. Gamasutra has an article, and this is interesting. BlueStacks Insides aims to give mobile devs a painless way to launch on Steam. So, without reading any further and just generalizing, BlueStacks is the Android emulator. So if you want to play a game that only runs on Google Android OS, but you want to play it on a PC, if you want to stream it, which that would be the way I would do it, you would use BlueStacks. The BlueStacks Inside software development kit is taking out the element that you have to install this emulator and use it and deal theoretically with the problems of that, or just the setup of that kind of configuration. And instead you're just going to have a exe file effectively that can be installed through the Steam profile and be added to your Steam library. I assume it also is going to try to integrate achievements that you would be triggering on the Google Play Games interface. Sorry, I hit my pop filter. I assume you try to integrate those those elements, and it is saying that it will integrate Steam Wallet transactions so you can buy in-app purchases, which, let's face it, that's exactly where this is going to boil down to, is that you'll have in-app purchases in a lot of mobile games. So if I just wanted to make like a 24/7 live stream of Destiny Child as a gacha mobile game that I'm playing, I probably could do that using BlueStacks. If they integrated BlueStacks inside into their software, they could release on Steam. It is questionable, certainly, how many mobile games are going to see big amounts of sales by being released on Steam, and this does mean that it is now easier, or it's soon going to be easier, to port your terrible mobile game to Steam, but people were doing that already. This may very well come down to a point where where Valve will just have to put its foot down and say no more no more mobile phone ports. We only want games that are finished products or designed specifically for PC interfaces. Or, you know, Valve could just have a mobile port, cell phone version of games, like segregate that into its own category and just have people decide whether or not they want to see those kind of games. That would be, I guess, the most generous way to do it. We have an Australian classification board announcing or leaking Dragon Quest XI Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition. The S, I believe, means Switch, though, so I don't think that this is an announcement of any PC version of that game. It's probably just a Switch re-release. What can I do? I got very little.
You win or you die.
Very little I can actually accomplish. In what can only be assumed at this point, a unannounced or unapparent sponsorship, TechRaptor has written yet another article. DevSpresso Games announces new Game Plus and more changes for Vanbrandt's Cold Souls. This is the 4th or 5th article that they've put out since that game has come out. Meanwhile, on Steam, nobody's really mentioning. Nobody was really liking it. And yeah, there's just nothing here that indicates that they are sponsored by it or they're getting some kind of money under the table. I mean, this really is gotta be an undisclosed sponsorship at this point. You don't write 5 articles about a game just because you love it, unless you're just wasting time before E3 happens. I guess that might be the thing that's happening here, but alright, well, that's pretty much all I can do. I still don't have my anti-duplicate tab plugin working. So there's a lot of tabs that are duplicate. TechRaptor has an article. The Sega Genesis Mini will feature 42 games. Let's see if there's a full list here. Virtual Fighter 2. All of these games, if you want to read them. That's not a list of 42 games, certainly. Yeah, it had been previously announced to be 40. And so they added 2 more. It would have been helpful though if somebody had just put a full list of all 42 games on the Genesis Mini. 42 games is not a bad collection. It sounds like it's probably more than it's probably more than what you get.
You have been measured and found wanting.
I did that wrong. I should have played this.
Minds so easily manipulated.
Yeah, I lost what I was about to say. Yeah. I was saying that the Genesis Mini sounds like it has more games, but it probably has a lot less quality games. Whereas there was probably nowhere enough games in the NES Mini, but the ones that were picked were big Nintendo titles that sell well and have a lot of nostalgia around them. I don't have a ton of nostalgia around the Genesis because I never had it as a kid, but once you eliminate the like 5 different variations or varieties of Sonic games and maybe 10 more Sonic game spin-offs out of the mainstream Sonic 1, 2, and 3 and Sonic and Knuckle variations there, it's hard to think of too much at all that was specifically on the Genesis and wasn't on like the 32X or the Sega CD. Alright. So if I give this minion this, I should have Divine Shield. And didn't have you target this minion. Battle cries trigger twice.
Like swatting insects!
In the turn there. It was dangerous there. I almost had too many on the field. I'm forgetting I actually need to win this, otherwise this is just going to be an annoying second playthrough of this. This guy's going to stop at 60, so even if I do... Gamatsu has an article here. Grenada HD collection coming soon. More information set for E3. Grenada and Grenada 2 HD remastered have been retitled for the Switch. Additionally, Grenada HD remaster will launch for the PC day and date with the Switch collection. Grenada, I assume, is a JRPG series. Yeah, it's tagged RPG. I'm not sure. Grandia. It is Grandia, isn't it? Not sure if it's a big one that needs to be covered, though. Alright. Battle cries trigger twice. Sure. This.
Job done.
In the turn. Alright. Still have battle cries trigger twice. If you could get a bunch of minions on the field, that would be helpful. Play, you've got a whole hand here, you've got 10 mana crystals. Fill the field with 6 minions.
I must consider.
I'm not sure if it's me that's losing this game. Or if it's my
In the
partner.
grand tournament, you win or you die.
Who knows what secrets will uncover?
Okay. Well, that's useless. This. I have 3 more mana. I can do something. But can I play anything? I guess I can play this.
Aha! Job done.
That's, yeah, kind of all I can do though. TechRaptor has an article, Beyond Good and Evil 2 livestream shares new world details.
Set of cards.
I kind of, it's a weird point here because they've been lying about Beyond Good and Evil 2 being in development for a long time, and it, I assume it isn't in development now, but it really has gone from a game that people who wanted it to see it actually come out hated because it wasn't really being worked on and it wasn't really coming out, to the point now where it's almost quaint and restrained how they only at once a year come out with a video or a teaser or some bit of news about the game, trying to make it seem like that it actually is still in development, or that it is in development and actually has a chance of succeeding. Okay, this does 10 damage. So is there any way I could hit this and not kill it? No, not really. So I have to buff this and hope he just plays a banana on this. Or I could play a banana next turn on it. But I can't really do anything this turn.
I'm out of cards.
He's like, yeah, my opponent here is playing terribly. Really, this is all his fault. Yeah, I don't care about Beyond Good and Evil 2 at this point. I don't think anybody who is smart should care about it. If it comes out, if it reviews well, then I'm more than willing to play the game. At some point I was going to get around to playing Beyond Good and Evil 1, 2, also. But you really can't put any passion or love in that game. Alright. I'm gonna throw
With me, friend.
this back. And then see if I can play it next turn to get some more. But this has a good chance of killing me. Because he's going to do like 10 damage. And so he just has to hit that guy twice. And this guy is going to start taking fatigue like an idiot.
I'll tickle the line.
We've got like 2 explosive runes now. Great. One, 2, 3, 4.
Challenge accepted.
And hit that. Then in the try. I think I can win here. Though, if I can give this guy Wind Fury and do Bloodlust, I think I'm fine. So, while we're doing that, we have a game called Blot Oof VR. This sounds German, if I was to guess. It doesn't look particularly too interesting. It seems like it's just kind of a random assortment of dark screenshot images, and it's one of these maybe underwater games. Just not really seeing anything here. English is not supported, requires VR, it's free. So if you can speak German, then maybe there's something here for you, but I suspect not really, even in that case. Alright, so I'm gonna give my character Wind Fury and do that. And hit that. And that. And that. And that.
No! I will destroy you!
I was really dragging some dead weight on that Tavern Brawl. And see, that inherently is a problem with doing Tavern Brawls where you're not supposed to defeat the person. Did we even open the pack, by the way, in the European account? We may have to go back and check. I think we did. I'm fairly certain. I'm gonna say we did. Ooh. Oh my goodness. Wow. It is possible. It is freaking possible to get 4 epics and a legendary. And I just did it. And I'm just gonna hit print screen on that, and I think we're gonna put that out on Twitter. If that is a big time reward there, which will probably lose some of its bluster when we go over here and dust all of them. Let's see, how many of them are there? 3 of those epics are extra. Alright. So that deserves a check. Just what do we have that's marked new? That's not something that's new. That's not something. Here we have a gold card we can dust. Here, that's not new. We can dust that. We may have gotten that. These new featured card elements are interesting. So, classic, and then missing. I want to see what I'm actually missing on this account, because that probably helped. A legendary, a legendary, a legendary, a legendary. We're down to like one legendary per hero class, and I don't even think it's all the hero classes. Legendaries. And then overall, we have 10 legendaries. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. 17 legendaries left to collect on the Asian account until we have a complete classic collection. Priest now. We're gonna just play a little bit of Priest. Play ranked, might as well. Next we have a game on Steam called Barotrauma, which is already mixed. Seems like it's a multiplayer space game, for lack of a better description.
The light shall bring victory.
It's early access, $25.49. I think that pretty much prices it out of consideration in a nutshell. Like, we could see if we could find some negative reviews to explain more. Good game, but totally overpriced. Thanks, Daedalic. Is this from Daedalic? Interesting. Well, if it's overpriced and it's mixed because of the overpricedness of it, I'll put it on the follow list and see if it ever goes on sale. And sale, in this case, would have to be a permanent price reduction, not just a temporary price reduction. The base price needs to be reduced. It's not uncommon, I suppose, for Daedalic to be a little bit too greedy. Like, with their re-releases of the Deponia series, and with Deponia Episode 4 being particularly bad, at full price being particularly bad. So, I wouldn't be surprised if Daedalic is running out of money or just getting too greedy for their own good. Next we have a game on Steam called Void Run, which is just a little too pixely for what it looks like. Seems like it's a top-down, kind of like, I forget the name of this game. There was a Windows game where you drew around the edges and trapped balls that couldn't run into you. So you have to like draw a circle around the asteroids to damage the asteroids, and then once you damage them you can collect the fragments of the asteroids. Seems to be the idea of Void Run. Void Run is discounted to $7.64 right now. It's English only as a language. It just doesn't have enough color palette or enough of a interesting looking game, although it does, in all fairness, look like it has more enemies and more polish than just your standard asteroids garbage game, which would be generically what I'd assume this was if I just looked at it for half a second.
Who goes there?
Gamma Sutra has an article here. Apple is being sued by iOS developers over, quote, profit-killing app store fees. Apple is being sued by quite a few people, and I suppose it is somewhat video game related to say that a broad range of antitrust investigations have been begun in the Congress against Microsoft and Google and Apple and Facebook. So So if they determine that anything anything improper or antitrust actually has happened, which obviously these things have, there's some potential for maybe one of those companies getting heavily fined or broken up even. Although I suspect that it won't get they won't get broken up. Alright.
I thank you.
Job's done.
The article continues that between Apple taking a 30% cut, which is the same Steam cut, they also have an annual fee of $99 and pricing mandates, which means that they can't be over a certain price or under a certain price to sell their products. So they're getting them from three different ends as far as, oh yeah, you can sell your game on our storefront, but not only at specific prices, and to do that you also have to give us 30% of the cut, and you have to
Feel my pain.
you have to pay $99 a year.
Job's done.
Which, frankly, if Steam went from $100 to list your game to $100 a year to continue listing your game, it might clean up Steam very quickly, because old game developers and publishers would just go, no, it's not worth it, and then their old games would get delisted if they're bad. That being said, I wouldn't be surprised if there's some newer AAA publishers that would also not be willing to pay $99 to list some of the older games, and that might hurt quite a bit. If you couldn't get like Doom 1 on Steam because it didn't want to pay the fee, that would be crazy. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article, Zombie Army 4 Dead War leaked by Amazon's Bing. I guess Zombie Army is a game series, but it's not one I really recall off the top of my head. Like, so many first-person shooters have zombie modes, it's a little silly and weird to have a Zombie Army game. A game that's built around that. Did I play enough priest cards? I don't think I did. You need to win the priest game and play divine shield minions, or minions that got just through it last. So I was trying to win there. Okay, good to know. Gamma Sutra has an article, GameStop's share price hits a 16-year low after Q1 results. So if you believe that the sales are going to pick up at GameStop when the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox 2 comes out, now might be the perfect time to buy some GameStop shares. However, if you believe that GameStop isn't going to make it to that point, or their sales aren't going to improve significantly by like this Christmas, then they very possibly could be bankrupt before that happens. So that's a pretty risky bet, and in the long run, and investments should be long run always, investing in GameStop makes very little sense, because I've yet to see any good leadership at GameStop's company, and we're seeing managers and CEOs move around like crazy at GameStop. So if there's a bright, new, smart manager or CEO running the place, and he's got new ideas, then that would be the idea, the point, I think, to get excited and have a
Right away.
start investing in the company. We don't talk about CBS News very often, but CBS News put out a article. People are spending less time on Facebook thanks to video games. It's interesting how the social justice and mainstream media hate ladder goes. Clearly, Facebook is at probably one of the top tier, top rungs of what mainstream news hates, because let's face it, people are getting a lot of their news, for better or worse, from Facebook instead of CBS News. So they're kind of in direct competition. And clearly, CBS News and mainstream media often hate video games and run terrible video game articles. But they don't hate video games as much as they hate Facebook, so they're going to write an article praising, or at least in part praising, video games. I'm sure if I was to waste my time, and it certainly would be a waste of time,
Right away.
to read this article, which in itself is bound to only be a fluff piece. It really can't be anything else. I heavily suspect what we would find is that there's some attacks on video games that are unfair. And this isn't new news really at all. People are playing more video games and watching less TV, watching less movie, listening to less music. They're doing everything a little bit less except for video games. Well, that's an overgeneralization, but it's pretty accurate.
Right away.
Moving on, Gamma Sutra has an article here. Sony could use cross-generational play to soften the next-gen transition. I don't know if this is as much a advertisement or an advertisement. So the general idea here is that Sony seems to be Sony's boss Jim Ryan says the company wants cross-generation unity between the PS4 and PS5, which means they want to continue to sell PS4 versions of games because the PlayStation 5 is going to be so expensive that even for people who own PS4s right now, a lot of them are not going to immediately buy the PlayStation 5. However, in previous instances of new generations of consoles, it has always worked the exact opposite way, for better or worse. You have very little cross-generational play, as they're calling it, and instead you have a lot of PlayStation 5 exclusives, in this case, to sell the PlayStation 5. If they're not going to have a bunch of PlayStation 5 exclusive games, then that pretty much means they're not predicting to sell too many units, which then is going to make it sound like a failure before people even before the first year anniversary occurs, because if cross-generation play allows people to keep their PS4s and not buy a PS5 6 months in, a year into the release of the PlayStation 5, if they haven't even sold 1 million units of the console, well, then that's just a failure. Or at least it sounds like a failure. And if it sounds like a failure, it will be a failure. It sounds like it's just terrible, bad business acumen. And that seems right in line, quite frankly, with what I'm getting from Sony Interactive Entertainment is that they don't seem like they know how to run a business. But they might prove me wrong, I guess.
Astonishing.
Next we have an article from Komatsu. Super Real Mahjong P7 is coming to the Switch June 13th in Japan. So these Mahjong games are still being made apparently, or getting ported. This might be a pretty old Mahjong game, quite frankly. And this anime style here is like from the 90s. This is definitely not the way they draw things these days. I wish there was a bit more of a split, quite frankly, if half the animators in Japan went back to the old anime style and half the animators stayed with the newer style, the new moe style, and chibi art style is not one that's super used. That being said, I'm sure there are some people that probably would love to see the 70s anime style come back, and that's probably not going to happen. And none of it's really going to happen because it's all going to CGI, and CGI looks usually almost 100% of the time awful, but it's cheaper, and that's all that really matters. Next we have a Tech Raptor article. Coverage Cub Bugger Hunter doesn't meet the reserve. This was one of the games on the follow list that I looked at, and then I determined it just didn't play well and it didn't have good reviews. So it's kind of interesting to see somebody else look at this game, since it's not particularly a new game. They didn't give it a review though. They said, I spent 2 hours playing it. I found the gameplay very compelling, but the execution of the idea is so mediocre that I can't really recommend you pick it up. So they just gave it a thumbs down general idea. I do want to applaud though Tech Raptor trying to cover lesser known games instead of just doing the AAA games. Okay.
Quickly.
There we go. Let's see. Next we have an article here from GameIndustry.biz. Mobile developer Double Jump accused of cloning. Cannon Brawl creator Teresa Duringer claims Canadian studio copied her competition entry. What's funny about this is you really shouldn't make public accusations like this, particularly of plagiarism and cloning, unless you can show a detailed, researched explanation on why. Because otherwise it just makes you look like a very petty and ridiculous person. So that's one thing to take from it. Cannon Brawl was originally developed as a submission for a games contest, which Duringer says she had to pay to enter. It did not win, but she has since finished the game and released it via Steam, with console versions due this August. According to Duringer, one of the judges in the competition is a member of Double Jump, and I guess the game wasn't good enough to win, just to clone, end quote. Is there any more story really here? Apparently the developer Sunday claims that Cosmic Showdown cost Double Jump $1 million pounds to make and took a year to make. So they're claiming it's not a clone. So sounds like there's two kind of pathetic games here that are both claiming to be clones, and I'm sure they're both kind of clones of a general concept or idea that's been done many times before. So I don't really know where to go with this story. I guess we'll keep our ears out and see if there's any more evidence. If Sid Alpha does the research, he's the type of person who do that kind of research, and he finds that one of the devs did blatantly plagiarize an idea, and the idea is of such a unique value that it could be plagiarized without just being a clone of a clone. He'll probably report on that. So far it's an accusation, and it definitely falls into that category of what I was saying, where you really shouldn't make these accusations until you have a full-on thesis explaining exactly why these three, why the game is cloned and what is being copied and what isn't. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article, Conan Unconquered review, Conan Smasher of Waves. I don't think I'd want to play Conan Unconquered. It looks to me pretty much like a real-time strategy game that probably isn't any good. I don't think any of the Conan games have ever been good enough. Here you can see they gave it a 6.5. Conan Unconquered is a deep and rewarding strategy survival title with some unfortunate technical issues that could really shine with some updates. Grab a friend and have a quality co-op game on your hands. I don't think I would ever be playing something co-op, so that's also in consideration. The pros for Conan Unconquered are tense and compelling action and impressive death. The cons are it's technically messy and there's no speed up option.
Armor made to fit.
I suppose the good news of me not recording anything yesterday is the fact that my voice does feel a little bit rested, and I kind of appreciate that. Alright.
Obey. No.
Your turn to bleed. Whispers everywhere.
Next we have a game on Steam called Cardlings, which seems like it's a card game that's turn-based, but it also seems like it plays on a board and a placement. I don't understand how you'd play a game like this, and that's slightly intriguing, but I suspect it will get reviewed pretty badly because I imagine it's just confusing and overly complicated. This is $4.99, English only. They're not releasing in early access. I'll give this one a chance and put it on the follow list, but again, I suspect it won't be received well. Next we have a game on Steam called Theotown, which looks like a city builder with nothing really special about it compared to any other city builder. $7.64 discounted, English and German. Not my style of game, so I could have put it on the follow list. Attack and health. I could swap attack and health, but I wouldn't want to do it this turn. Next, we have a game on Steam called New Day Cataclysm, which sounds more like a WWE wrestling team than a game.
Fate of the world hangs in the balance.
I don't see anything here visually impressive. This kind of just feels like an asset flip game. Every screenshot seems to be standing in the exact same place, which is extremely suspicious. It's free, English only, apparently English full audio. But yeah, I'm not seeing anything there. Alright, take that. And then attack here. Sure. Might be able to win here. Tech Raptor has an article. The Cult of Mystery visual novel Raging Loop is coming westward. This is the exact same article Komatsu had. Seems like Tech Raptor is pretty much just copying a lot of some, but not all of Komatsu's articles. Ad copying, I guess, is the right way to say it. There was not particularly plagiarizing things, but just following along and making the same announcements that everybody else is making. Alright. I could have healed. Darn it.
Magic
If I lose by 1, I'm going to be upset. Alright, well, I have enough to do this. And then I'm going to do that. Then end of turn. GameIndustry.biz has an article. Gearbox names a Borderlands 3 game after a fan with terminal cancer. Trevor Eastman was also able to play a section of the game ahead of its September launch. This is a great feel-good story. It's kind of crazy that Borderlands Twitter didn't tweet it out, or Randy Pitchford didn't tweet it out, because they certainly could use these feel-good stories, or even 2K. I think I follow all of them on Twitter, and I got this from GameIndustry.biz. Maybe they didn't want to brag. Maybe they wanted to have the journalist sites brag for them. Like, they did a very similar thing in Borderlands 2, where there was a character based off somebody who died or was terminal. I think they died before the game came out. Oops. Oh yeah, why don't I just fatigue myself? That's a smart move. Go down to 1 card. You can just gain armor and work me down fatigue-wise.
Obey.
There's no way I'm winning this. There's no way I'm winning this.
Obey.
And I needed that victory too. Tech Raptor has an article. Dragon Quest 12 is in preparation at the Square Enix, so they're beginning the development of Dragon Quest 12, and it seems like the indication here is that the characters from Dragon Quest 11 are going to come back in Dragon Quest 12, which I'm not sure that's how the Dragon Quest series always plays. Well, let's play this Paladin game. And this video talking about it is just a bunch of people on stage talking about Dragon Quest.
Uther versus Anduin. The light shall bring victory.
I will fight with
Still have a decent number of games that maybe aren't decent. to deal with, so let's trade that and that. So here we have a game that's clearly a troll game called You're Fired. It's an, I guess, apprentice simulator style game for 99 cents. Don't buy these garbage troll games though. Next we have a game on Steam called Absolute Fall, which to me looks like a low effort parkour running game.
Quickly.
Which, yeah, there's
Let me think.
seems to be absolutely nothing here of interest.
The light protects me.
Trying to wrap up here.
Is someone injured?
Next we have a game called Kunoichi, which looks like a low effort infinite runner with just ninjas and slashing and jumping. There's nothing here of interest. Are we gonna run into just a whole run of terrible games? This is $1.99 English
Let
only.
me think.
I wouldn't be surprised, quite frankly, that this is the issue in a nutshell with
Reporting for duty.
streaming and looking at games before E3 comes out. Next we have a game on Steam called Ord, which looks like an alarm clock option, or I have no idea what this is. It seems like it's a text-based only game, but clearly it's low effort. Clearly there's nothing here. $1.99 again, English only. It's clearly an achievement game where every achievement is a letter of the alphabet.
This apple on your head.
Let's see.
I fight.
Next we have a game on Steam called Beat Your Meat, which seems to be pigs fighting each other with hammers and mallets. Clearly this is a troll game just by the name of it, or just a player versus player game that's nobody's ever going to play. It's early access, local multiplayer only, no single player, no online multiplayer. They want $13.99 for this game. Yeah, right. That's pretty much all you can say.
Follow the rules.
Of course, if this guy gets silenced, then he'll just get his attack back. That was a waste. But I had to play this guy anyways. No, I could have played this guy. That would have been smarter.
Fight.
I'm playing poorly, because I'm trying to anxiously get through all of this. Next we have a game on Steam called Aurora Hex Pattern Puzzles. It seems like there might be something here, so I think I want to give this one a follow. It is a single screen Unity game, and it is basically a jigsaw puzzle game with just colors and hexagonal shapes instead. It's $3.74 discounted, and it says it supports a bunch of languages. I'm willing to give this one a follow just to see if anybody reviews it. So if I had played this and this
Last
and that,
warning.
both of these are silenced, and yet this guy isn't silenced. That's terrible. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Heroin Anthem 02 Scars of Memories. That's a very anime style name there. And that's pretty much what it looks like in this trailer, in this intro also. But this probably doesn't explain what the game actually is. To me, it's saying RPG drama adventure game, but to me this looks like it's a visual novel. I guess it isn't. Maybe it looks like a side-scrolling beat-em-up type game. Well, the thing about this is it's early access. It's discounted to $9.67, and the question would be: is there a game like this already developed? Is there a Heroin Anthem 01? Or is this the first game? Yeah, there is a first game here, and you can see it's mixed reviews. So it's a Chinese developer. They're working. They're trying to make a good game, but they don't have any credibility per se. So I wouldn't want to use that or put it on the follow list. It's just not quality enough. If the sequel turns out to be way better and people actually review it and I hear about it again, I would be willing to play this, but I suspect heavily it's not better. And that this is maybe not a low effort Chinese game, but a medium effort Chinese game in a world where we really only want to see the highest top tier amount of effort as far as game releases. There's this.
Reporting
That.
for duty.
And then return. Gamatsu has an article. R-Type Final 2 Kickstarter campaign has been fully funded. It's secured release for consoles on PC. I believe it was funded relatively fast, but that tends to be the case anyways. And now they've announced a whole bunch of stretch goals up to $2.5 million. So 6 days remain on the Kickstarter campaign to gain additional funding. So, okay, you might see a R-Type Final 2 game come out in the next few years. You might also very well run into a case of there just being an unfinished product or an unsatisfactory level of quality on that product. So you just never really know.
Quickly.
Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Eve of Souls Static Pod, which looks like another RPG Maker game. I think I skipped over this game and then went back and opened it again just to say, oh yes, RPG Maker games are still being made. And I really didn't need to do that. It's early access, it's $1.19, it's English and Chinese. Yeah. And I don't really have to say it's a cheap Chinese game, I can just say it's a RPG Maker game, and that the two things mean almost exactly the same thing. I still need to get more Divine Shields minions played, and I still need to get a Priest Victory. And I'm close to wrapping up the stream. We're almost out of news, but I guess we'll play one more game and see how this goes. TechRaptor has an article. Good Old Game re-releases Diablo Hellfire expansion, adds Bethesda to the summer sale. Although Activision Blizzard right now is losing employees like crazy, so I have no idea what the Activision Blizzard lineup is going to look like 6 months from now, a year from now. I definitely don't want to buy the Diablo and the old Bethesda Battle.net games via Good Old Games. I'd like to see them come to Steam just for the consistency of having all games in one place. That being said, there's really a 50-50 shot. It feels like that Activision Blizzard might go out of business, and then some holding company might get the rights to those games, and then those games won't be released in at all for a while. Same thing with Telltale games. The difference, I would say, is that if I had never covered any Telltale games, I don't think it would have mattered as much as if I never cover a Activision Blizzard game.
The light protects me.
GameIndustry.biz has this interesting quote. Take-Two CEO, Fortnite never affected the industry. Strauss explains why free-to-play games won't change premium business models and why platform revenue share splits may soon change. Now, when you just boil it down and quote mine here, that is a really stupid statement for Strauss Zelnick to be attributed to. Fortnite never affected the industry. Clearly, the success of Fortnite, at the very least, allowed Epic to create the Epic Store and to cause
I fight.
and to cause some market disruption with exclusives, and to do something that definitely affected the video game industry in general. Now, if he is trying to make the argument that because Fortnite is this free-to-play game, it really didn't have any effect on the AAA games and premium games that Take-Two sells, I don't think that's really true. I really don't think it is. Even on the back end, I imagine Fortnite has changed how Unreal works, and thus anything that uses Unreal, which includes at least a few Take-Two games, I'm sure, would be affected. So it's a bad statement to make. It really is. Sounds more like an attempt at a slap across the face of Epic's CEO, or Epic in general, which is nice to. It's probably a good move to make, instead of butting up to Epic as others have. But really, that's the kind of fight that should not be happening publicly. I could also buy his side somewhat. I doubt too many people didn't buy Take-Two games because they were playing Fortnite, but you never really can tell that. If you're satisfied playing Fortnite, you won't even seek out new games. I doubt you'll ever be able to prove that there will be less sales for Borderlands 3, for instance, because of Fortnite, but almost certainly there will be. Moving on, we have a Gamma Sutra article here. Bulletstorm and Gears of War developer People Can Fly opens a New York studio, which I'm not sure I really believe that that People Can Fly has the funding to be opening a second studio. They're currently developing an unannounced AAA project for Square Enix, which who knows what that is. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a Deus Ex game. But yeah, I just really doubt they should be spending that money. They should probably be a little bit more cautious. I don't think they need 2 offices or 2 studios. But maybe they've got some extra funding somewhere.
I wonder what this does.
It wouldn't be super surprising, and this is just a tinfoil hat thought, wouldn't be surprising if People Can Fly was starting a new studio because they were going to hire Randy Pitchford away or hire Gearbox employees away, but
Got something to hide?
yeah, that doesn't make that much sense. There was rumors and speculation, almost completely confirmed, that somebody was thinking about buying Gearbox as a company, so I don't think it could be People Can Fly, though. I don't think they have enough money. I think that'd be Goliath buying David buying Goliath instead of the other way around. As far as the Telltale Minecraft story mode elements on Steam, I tried to look that up and couldn't get any further with it. I've been certainly busy doing other things, but it seems to me like if there is a Minecraft story mode season 2 that I don't own, which almost certainly is the case, I can't purchase it on Steam. So it's already too late. So yeah. And it turned out that the rest of these tabs are games that I had left over from Monday that I was going to put on the fall list, not games that we need to cover yet again, I think. Yeah, it seems to be the case. I did hear Gato Roboto for a game is only a couple hours long, so if I only had to play a Metroid game that's in black and white for a couple hours, that's less of a commitment for sure. And so that then brings me to the Humble Bundle store, and I think to no surprise there are no new Humble Bundles, and there won't be until E3 happens, and then I imagine there'll be a big Humble Bundle sale. And we're kind of in a bad position where I'm gonna have to play a little bit off screen because I need to get a Priest of Warlock victory and play some cheap minions. If I just focused on this, I could play more like that and be done pretty easily. If I just keep playing Paladin, I'll eventually play enough Divine Shield. Or if I just play Priest long enough to get a victory, I might get enough Divine Shield minions anyways. Let's see. I'm going to scroll down the Twitter feed real quickly just to see if there's anything else that needs to be talked about. It's highly unlikely that there's going to be any big announcement or bit of some news that comes out before E3. But who knows? There might just be something. Nope. Not from what it looks like. I really only have 2 or 3 new tweets. Alright, well, that's going to be it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me even further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Remember that Steam Summer Sale is coming. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.